your wish.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is so good to see all of you here this evening, whether you are out there in your homes or whether you are here in the congregation with us. I think on this Shabbat, in the middle of such incredible global turmoil, it's really especially important that we come together and that we support one another and check in with one another about how we're doing. So for everyone who has chosen to join us, thank you for being part of that effort this evening. I'm Rabbi Abby Phelps. This is Congregation Shereth Israel, and I am so pleased to welcome you. I am joined here by Noah Levy and Achi ben Shalom, who are wonderful cantorial musical soloists this evening. And also, Noah does many other things for us, lots of teaching. And so if you have taken any Hebrew classes with us, you probably know her. And of course, also Zach Migdale and Peter Bonos, our wonderful tech people. Thank you all so much for putting this service together. We're going to begin this evening with a welcome from a member of our Board of Trustees. So I'd like to invite up Judy Wexler, who, can I say also what you are like imminently? Who is also our upcoming new president of the Board of Trustees. So please come on up and offer a few words of greeting, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Rabbi Abby. As always, it's a pleasure to be able to be here and to welcome all of you. For the last 2 years, I've felt every week, this has to stop, this constant twirling of crisis and illness and global problems, and yet it hasn't. And so I think this week, I know part of my family came from Ukraine, so I'm feeling deeply what's going on, even though they were happy to leave Ukraine for many reasons. Still, it feels personal. And there's something about coming together, seeing people individually who I care about, who care about each other, and seeing us collectively, and then being in this wonderful space just makes me take this deep sigh and think, okay, for the next hour, I can move into a different place from our everyday world, enjoy the beautiful music, enjoy the wisdom and the warmth, and the specialness of being together. And so on behalf of everybody on the board, it's a pleasure to welcome you and to be here together with you at yet another fraught Friday. But when we put it aside for the moment and find a place of peace. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for contributing your warmth and wisdom as well. We can use all we can get. So on this Shabbat, speaking of welcoming, I know that we have at least a couple of folks in the congregation who are visiting for the first time, hopefully not the last, but who knows. We have Or and Leora here who are shlichim, Israeli shlichim, who do various work as emissaries of Israel in the US, and I would love to invite them to come up and light our Shabbat candles. So this is kind of a trick matchbox. So you gotta hold it so it stays in. So who wants to try? Just make sure you hold it on both ends. It'll fly out. You got it. Want me to place the whole? Whichever you prefer. We can all do together. Okay. We'll do the blessing. There. You did that much better. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher tishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu le'advikner shel We're going to continue our service with Shiru Ladonai, the song and prayer in which we profess our desire to sing to God a new song, a song of God's greatness that will inspire us as well as praise God. So please sing along with us if you can. We are on page 13 in our prayer books. To formally welcome Shabbat now. We imagine Shabbat coming to meet us as our beloved who greets us every Friday evening and comes to dwell with us for the length of Shabbat to bring us peace and hope and all of the replenishment that we need. We envision Shabbat in this way in the prayer Lecha Dodi, which you can find in your prayer books on page 20.
What are we doing on the verses?
We're doing verses, I believe we usually do 1, 2, 5, and 9.
Yeah.
So
1, 2, 5, and
1, 2, 5, and 9. And we'll rise for the final verse.
This is a new melody for everybody. Easy to catch up.
Ya la 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 lecha dodi.
I know this one.
Ya la 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 likrat kala. Ya la 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 b'nei Shabbat. B'nei Shabbat nekar. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה יא לה 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 lecha dodi יא לה 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 לקראת כלה יא לה 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 בני שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי מקום הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לקראת כלה. יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי. אורי אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. יאללה לה 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 לך דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה. יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום, עטרת בלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמונה עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. יאללה לה 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 לך דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה. יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. יאללה לה 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 לך דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה. יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה.
We'll remain standing now as we formally call one another to prayer with the Baruch Hu, which you can find in your prayer book on page 28. Please join me in reading the English at the top of page 31. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. We continue together in the English at the bottom of page 33. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. We join together in the Shema on page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
May be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בעם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Please join me once more in the English on page 41. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Please join us in Mi Chamocha on page 40.
אלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה, זה לי אנו ואמרו, זה לי אנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה לה יאללה לה לה.
I have to say, I love our cantor. He's wonderful. It's such a delight to be with you on the Bima this evening as well. It's fun to have a change of pace, and it's fun to have these wonderful people with us.
It's fun to have backing vocals at our service.
Yes, it's true. We have all the choir people close to the front. Good for you. Well, on this Shabbat, when things are so hectic, in all the ways that I think Judy quite eloquently described at the beginning of our service, I think it's especially meaningful for us to give thanks for the shelter that God provides, especially the spiritual shelter, which is always accessible to us, the Sukkah of Shalom, the shelter of peace that is part of the nature of the world. So wherever we are, whether you're beneath this beautiful dome or in the safety of your own home, please join us in giving thanks for God's shelter with Hashkivenu on page 42.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
Coming together to pray also gives us the opportunity to amplify our voices with one another's, to pray for the things that we most need. And on this Shabbat, I think there are many of us and many in the world who could use our prayers for healing, healing of mind, body, and spirit. On this Shabbat, we are thinking particularly for healing of Aharon Ben Tzvi, Jim Blattner, Jeremy Frick, William Gaines, William Kurian, Carolyn Resnikoff, Agnes Rothblatt, Gay Seiler, Rabbi Marty Wiener, and Shel Wolf. We also hold in our hearts all of those who are suffering in the conflict in Ukraine and throughout the world. And if you are thinking of anyone for healing this Shabbat whom I have not named, please feel free to share their name at this time. We join together in the prayer for healing, Misha Berach, on page 253.
Our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Yishebera imotenu mekor habracha those in need of healing with refuah shema, their renewal of body, their renewal of spirit, and let us say,
I invite you now to rise once more in preparation for the Amidah, the central prayer of our service, beginning with Adonai Sefatai on page 46.
Sefatai tiftach
my lips, that my mouth may declare your prayer. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומשיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל, אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. הכת קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We take a few moments now to continue our prayers in silence, either the prayers that you can find on the page between pages 54 and 62, or the prayers of your own hearts. When you have finished your prayers, you may be seated.
So long
to Canaan, and I won't rest until I go back again. I've been to Canaan, and I won't rest until I go back again. Thank you for listening and sharing this tune. We thought it was quite fitting for these times, and also an opportunity since we're about to embark on Women's Celebration of Women Month, I guess. So this was written by Carole King. This is from her 1972 album, Rhythms and Rhymes. I highly suggest to check it out. And yeah, so can't we go back to Canaan? All yours.
Thank you. Amen. Yes, please. Well, this is a tough Shabbat for saying Shabbat Shalom. Shalom, peace, I think to many of us feels a lot further away on this Shabbat than it did just a few days ago. If you're in my Pirkei Avot study group and you were able to be with us yesterday, God, was that only yesterday? You may remember that I mentioned to the group that earlier this week I had a drash all laid out for tonight. It was going to be about a particular aspect of the building of the Mishkan that is discussed in this week's Parsha. One of the things that is specified is that the lavers, the washing bins that the priests are to use before they perform their holy rituals, should be made or were made from the mirrors of ministering women who ministered outside of the Mishkan, outside of the tabernacle. And it's not entirely clear, by the way, what those women were doing, what the role was that those mirrors played. But I was going to do a whole extended reflection on reflection. What does it mean to have our sacred washing vessels be made out of these mirrors? What do they reflect to us? And lest you worry that you're not going to get to hear about it, come to Torah study. It'll come up there. But I was all set to talk about all of those things. And then Russia invaded Ukraine, and the world changed. Before I say anything else, I want to offer a little caveat. This conflict, the histories of Russia and Ukraine, politics, international relations, none of these things is my area of expertise. And so I apologize in advance if I say anything erroneous, ill-informed, or undoubtedly poorly pronounced. But that being said, I do feel compelled to reflect a little on this moment. And I probably don't need to tell anyone in this room that this war is a massively consequential event. I think Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders put it quite eloquently in a statement that he released to social media. He said, "We are witnessing the most massive military operation in Europe since World War II. There must be no ambiguity in acknowledging that what the whole world is seeing today is nothing less than a blatant violation of international law and of basic human decency. This war will likely kill thousands of people and create millions of refugees. At a time when the global community is already struggling with the COVID pandemic and climate change, this war could plunge Europe into long-term economic and political instability. Make no mistake about it, the effects of this war will be felt here in the United States and in countries throughout the world." He went on to say, "This war is clearly an act of premeditated aggression against Ukraine and its people. This aggression is unacceptable, and the nations of the world must respond vigorously to defend democracy and the rule of law." That last remark about defending democracy alludes to something that I think it's also very important to acknowledge, which is that for many of us, as Judy alluded to earlier, this war feels remarkably personal. First of all, as a community, we at Sherith Israel have been staunch and vocal proponents of aiding refugees, and of upholding democracy. We've held numerous programs devoted to these causes. We're holding one next Shabbat, Refugee Shabbat. And we've given our time and our money to support these causes. So this attack on Ukraine is also an attack on some of our most deeply held values. As Jews, we remember well the decades of strenuous effort by the American and international Jewish communities to help Jews emigrate from what was formerly the Soviet Union to Israel, the US, and beyond. And we also remember our people's long history of oppression and expulsion, of wandering the globe endlessly in search of safety that proved to be elusive and temporary at best. Today, by some estimates, there are approximately 43,000 Jews in Ukraine, although that estimate may actually be very low. Our hearts break as we watch yet another Jewish population forced to uproot themselves, to leave their homes and seek refuge elsewhere, or to remain in their homes, terrified, hoping to wait out the conflict. And as you may very well be aware, there is another stranger Jewish angle to this story as well, which is, of course, the president of Ukraine is himself Jewish. President, I'm going to say this very wrong, Vladimir Zelensky. And one of the great ironies and horrors of this conflict is that President Putin of Russia has characterized it as an attempt, among other things, to denazify Ukraine. There is a long history to that claim, and it bears discussing, but to attempt to conflate Ukraine's current government, led by one of the very few Jewish presidents in the world, with Nazism is, I think, beyond horrific and offensive. And on top of all of this, I know that this conflict feels intimately personal to many of us as individuals. Our congregation includes numerous immigrants and descendants of immigrants from Ukraine, from Russia, from former Soviet countries. I even have a little bit of a family connection. When I told all those stories about my grandfather a few weeks ago, one story that I skipped was that when my grandfather and my grandmother, my mother's parents, used to fight, my grandfather would sometimes refer to my grandmother as a Litvak, and my grandmother would call him a Galicianer. This was part of the sparring. But my brother recently did a little research about this and informed me what you may already know, which is Galicianer is Yiddish for Galician Jews, which is a subgroup of Ashkenazi Jews originating in the Kingdom of Galicia and Lodomeria, again, apologies for pronunciation, in what is now southeastern Poland and western Ukraine. We know that the world of Jews is small, and I would wager that I and many of us in this room have some familial, if not cultural, relationship to today's Jews in Ukraine, whether it's more distant like mine, or whether it's very immediate. In the case of those of us who have themselves lived in Ukraine, or are close with families still living there. So for so many of us, this invasion of Ukraine hits very close to home and may even directly threaten our loved ones. So knowing all of this, what can we do? First and foremost, we can support each other. If you personally know someone in our community, in one of your other communities, who has close ties to Ukraine, Russia, or former Soviet nations, please check in with them. Ask them how they're doing. This is what Jewish community is truly for, caring for one another in difficult times, as well as celebrating in joyous ones. At a time when we are all exhausted by 2 years of pandemic, when our nerves are frayed, dig deep to treat one another with all the chesed and kavod, all the loving kindness and respect that we can possibly muster. And we must reach out to members of our community who may be suffering. we also need to keep paying attention to what's going on and standing in solidarity with Ukrainians and with the thousands of incredibly brave people in Russia who are right now risking arrest and death to protest their president's actions. We need to follow the news from a number of sources, from trusted sources that we rely on, and maybe from ones we don't usually venture to. I think it would be informative and useful for us all to spend a little bit of time looking at what the Russian press is putting out. We know, of course, the Russian press is not free. It's controlled by the state. And you can find, was it RT on YouTube, if you go to RT News? If you look up RT on YouTube, you can see what the Russian press is saying. It's also worth, I think, going to sources that are not your usual go-tos in an attempt to gather as much information as we can about what's actually taking place. And of course, we need to balance that effort with looking out for ourselves, with appropriate self-care. We don't want to become so overwhelmed by the realities that we become paralyzed. But I do think we can't let that be an excuse to turn a blind eye. We have to make sure that we are all engaged in learning about what is going on. And lastly, I think this is a great time to think about redoubling our efforts to support refugees. Because while there is not yet a direct refugee crisis from the invasion of Ukraine, there are many voices predicting that there will be. There are certainly many people fleeing the country, and it's going to be important for us in the US to ask how we can help and to take meaningful action. And in that spirit, I invite and encourage all of you to join us again for Shabbat next week. We will be focusing on the plight of refugees. It is the Shabbat that HIAS, the Hebrew International Aid Society, right? That HIAS has identified as Refugee Shabbat. And we're going to have an incredible speaker at our service, Reverend Deborah Lee, who is the director of the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity, which is as great as it sounds. And she will speak about her work to support refugees and what we can do to support it. With all of that in mind, I think for me, the overarching theme for this Shabbat, the thing that I most want to focus on, is summed up nicely in a song that was written by Rabbi Menachem Creditor immediately after 9/11. He was moved to write a song in which he repeats over and over again the phrase, Olam chesed yibaneh, the world will be built from love. He writes, I will build this world from love, and you must build this world from love. And if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love. Ken Yehi Ratzon, so may it be. Shabbat Shalom, such as it is. Well, even in times that are difficult, it is important for us to recognize that there are joyous things happening in our community, outside our community, things that it behooves us to recognize. So if anyone is celebrating a simcha, a joyous occasion on this Shabbat, I'd love to hear about it. If you are able to stand up and loudly and briefly explain what your simcha is, I will attempt to repeat it for the benefit of all those who are listening. It looks like somebody's got a simcha up here, maybe. Yes, Eric, please.
Yeah, so our son, Max, has taken a job in Scott Wiener's office as a legislative aide to the Jewish Legislative Caucus in Sacramento.
Max, you said, right? Max Migdale has...
Not that one, the other one.
Right, not this guy. Max Migdale has taken a job as a legislative aide for Scott Wiener, so mazal tov to him and yasher koach, well done.
Thank you.
Ruth, did you have one to share too?
My son Matthew turned 27 this week.
Oh, happy birthday, Matthew!
Those that have known him since whenever.
Cool. Matthew has turned 27. Happy birthday. Yes, go right ahead.
We're heading to Los Angeles next week. We will be at the Refugee Shabbat because we're getting to meet the 2 new twins in our family.
Ooh, very cool. Are these grandchildren? Nephews? Great nephews and nieces? Something of that sort?
Great nephew and
Oh my goodness. So the Newmans are off to visit a great-great-nephew and niece in LA next week. Well, that's, if you have to have an excuse to miss Refugee Shabbat, I guess that's an acceptable one. Does anybody else have a simcha they want to share with everyone? Oh, please, go ahead.
My stepdad is turning 91 on Saturday, and he still goes running, like 2
Wow.
miles every other day.
That would be your dad then. No, stepdad. I thought it was father-in-law. I was getting confused. Your stepdad is turning 90. My goodness, and he still runs every day. Well, may we all aspire to be as fit and vigorous as he is at 91 or at any age. I certainly don't. Ad mea vesrim. Did you have more you wanted to say? Please.
Noah has 5 jazz shows in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and Haifa next month. I'm going to go in there.
Yes, well, Noah's PR spouse has informed us that she will have some jazz shows in Israel and Haifa and Tel Aviv next month, right? So if you happen to be in Israel, if you're watching us from Israel, please go. There will be a live stream. You don't have to be in Israel. You can watch from wherever you are. So yeah, get it. If you're not on her mailing list, you should get on it, and then you'll know all about it. Wow, you too? Really? Anyone else have anything they want to share? All right, that's a pretty good list of simchas. In honor of all of those simchas, I'm going to invite us all to stand together for a moment and recite the Shahifanu blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheyanu v'kiyemanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. Amen. We're going to begin the concluding portion of our service now with Aleinu, which you can find on page 282. It reminds us that it is our obligation to build the perfected world that we wish to live in. Page 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. On this Shabbat, we remember a friend of David Bolafi, Tasso Tumpas, who very recently passed away. We remember for Shloshim, for the first 30 days of mourning, Ruth Resnikoff, Diana Shore, and Aubrey Yowitz. If you're observing Shiva or Shloshim, the first 7 or 30 days of mourning for a loved one, please rise and share their name with us. And if you're observing the first year of mourning for a loved one, please rise and share their name with us.
Jim Cowan.
Leon Mervis. Chris Henry.
Judy Migdal, Ellie Lewskin.
Perpetual memorials in our community are Ingrid Apter, Shoshana Chana Asher, Judy Migdale, Leon Mervis, Harold Weiss, and Joanne May Weiss. And in this Shabbat, we're also observing the following yard sites, anniversaries of death. Please rise as your loved one's name is read. We remember Homer Carey, Rabbi David B. Corin, Dr. Nathan S. Deutsch, Morris Fellman, Louis J. Figone, Harold Harris, Arthur C. Johns, Maisie Koss, Helen Moss, Stanley Newman, Edward Sapphire, George Sladnick, Herschel Tolson, Ben Wine, and Rosalind Zuckerman. If you are observing a yard site for someone whose name I have not read, please rise and share their name with us.
Ida Levy.
And now I invite us all to rise together as one community as we join in the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, b'alma divrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon u'vyomechon v'chayeh d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'olmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal, shmei d'kudsha brichu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all the world. Together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. We have just a few announcements this evening. If you are intrigued now by the mirror washing basin connection, please join me for Torah study tomorrow at 9:15. We will be on Zoom. Also on Sunday, Studio will be back in session for the beginning of an exciting few weeks at Studio. This is going to be a more sort of normal meeting, but on March 13th, we are having a Bring a Friend Day. So if you have a Jewish friend with kids, or you have a Jewish friend who is a kid who might be interested in Studio, we would love to see them there. Materials are going to go out inviting people to forward invitations and sign-ups. So please have that date in mind. And also on March 20th, we will have our Purim Carnival. This year it will be outside. It will be in the Pine Lake picnic area of Stern Grove. That's the part that's not washed out. And there will be a bounce house. There will be other things, but there will be a bounce house. So there's what to be excited about. And of course, as I said, please do join us for Refugee Shabbat next Friday. Is there anything else that Social Action wants to announce? Just checking.
We have, if you are interested in Noah's music, we have working on linking for information to the YouTube video for tonight. So if you'd like to check it out.
Great. Oh, great. So if you are on YouTube, in the comments, you should see information about Noah's concert. So
Technology.
we're all Noah's PR team. I think, unless anyone has thought of anything that I have not announced. Oh, Ruth, please.
The teens are doing their Mishloach Manot, and this is the last
Yes.
order.
That is very important, thank you. The very, very latest that you can order Mishloach Manot. Mishloach Manot being gifts of snacks and joyous little tchotchkes that you give to friends for Purim. It's one of the 4 mitzvot of Purim. None of those mitzvot is to be in a costume or get soused or any of those other things, but one of the mitzvot is to send gifts to friends. So if you have contemplated doing it and haven't done it yet, you only have until Sunday to purchase your Mishloach Manot, and all of the funds from that go to Support City, the youth group. So please do join that effort if you can. How might one purchase them? An email went out to the congregation about it. I think one went out today, and one also went out a little while ago. There should have been a link there. I'm sure there's some other way to get to it from our website. I don't offhand know what it is, but check your inboxes. You should have an email about it if you're on the Under the Dome list. I think that's I'm sure there are many other things taking place, but those are all of the ones that leap to mind, and I can't overload everyone. So with that, we're going to conclude our service with Kiddush and Motzi and a closing song. So please rise with us for Kiddush. I'll lead Kiddush. All right. So please rise. We'll go ahead and say the Kiddush blessings together, which you can find on page 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei puri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, b'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techilah l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki banu v'acharta, v'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
L'chaim.
Yes, that worked. And now, we will... Yes? Excellent. If you are looking for your way to purchase Mishloach Manot, you can go to the youth group webpage. That will take you there. Thank you very much. And now, our COVID-safe challah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz te'avon. All right. And we're going to close with a
Yes,
song.
we have a fun song. If you want to sing along with us, it's, we've got the La La La, so don't
Also,
worry
you
about
can go
that.
ahead and have a seat if you'd like.
And thank you for Peter Bonus, who's playing with us.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.